Let's have some fun. What's up, guys? Welcome to North America Bracket Predictions. I am doing this on the Sunday before the Saturday that these teams play. So, some of these predictions could, sway a bit depending on what teams do this week. Stuff like that for some of the closer games, I would say. But why not? Well, let's just go into bracket predictions. We'll be talking to Twitch chat as well throughout. So if you're listening on SoundCloud, you might get a little confused once in a while, but I'll try and mention what's happening in Twitch chat here or there. So I didn't put up SoundCloud for Europe thing yet. I'll have to do that soon. But it doesn't matter to you anyway. You'll see that soon. But yeah. Let's go into NA bracket predictions. A little upset. I think the worst team that lost, or the best team that lost, was like Lucky Bounce at like seeded number 25. And honestly, no one expected Lucky Bounce to do much this season. Sorry, Prem. And Timothy. But that was, I think, the best team to lose. So no really surprising results coming out. The only two teams from the top 10 that actually lose a game in the first weekend was Take-3 and Genesis. Probably the two teams that a lot of people, when I asked for who's going to be upset, a lot of people were saying Take-3 or Genesis have that chance because they've been inconsistent at times or they can get a little tilty. So both teams came down to an elimination game, at least from the upper side of the bracket, but they both moved on, both losing only one game in their bracket. So, but everyone else, smooth sailing, 2-0s across the board. I would love to know if you guys were watching any streams. I wasn't. I was hanging out with family this whole weekend. What was the biggest blowout? Like, I would like to know if any of you saw any huge blowouts in some games. Like, I saw Classics got what? I can't remember how many demolitions he got. He got like 16 or something like that in one of the games. So I'm glad they're having some fun with it. That's actually kind of fun to see. And I heard Twitch was doing pretty well for the most part. A lot of people were watching what F2 was doing through various other streamers. A lot of people were watching Crow, obviously, and was kind of spread around. So like this first weekend's always fun because everyone is very excited to see how teams will fare. Most of these guys, like, I can see a lot of viewers just going into player stream hoping for that big upset and just see how they react. But we didn't get any of that this time. But yeah, it was a fun time. 26. Oh, it was 26. Hey, what's up, Classics? Well done, man. It's a man in my heart right there. Classics. I will definitely mention that on the desk next week. 26 demolitions. So what is it? That is just shy of 4 exterminations in one game. Most people don't even have 4 exterminations in their career, let alone in one game. I know last season Pashy was doing that too. He got 1 extermination in I think it was last season, or maybe Rlcs season number 1 during qualifiers where he got an extermination. But well done. That's always a good time. Yeah, let's go into it. We're gonna be talking about North America. We'll be talking about Europe, dependent. I might do it right after this on Twitch at least, but probably not, because I didn't do as much research yet into the Europe bracket, but we could just kind of fly through it. I'm going to have some notes up over on the other side, so I'll be going through it. I'm going to be talking about the seeding from Cloud, which is basically just based on results from the past month or so, and he seeded pretty well. Like, I enjoyed his seeding. The one thing I wish Rlcs would do, just in general, is maybe a month before. Well, it's hard, because signups close, like, what, 2 weeks before? I think it's about 2 weeks before, not even, maybe a week before, but maybe a month before, be like, hey, like, if you're thinking about going through the RLCS gauntlet here and you want to get seeded, you should probably try and keep your core team together and play in, like, these specific tournaments or by these specific tournament organizers, because this is what we're going to look at to see where you're seated. Because a lot of people, I saw one argument, he's like, yeah, my team, they did pretty well in some 2v2 tournaments. I'm like, that should have that shouldn't help at all. And then, like, someone else was like, yeah, but like, I was on this random team last time and we made top 64. It's like, that's not enough information. We want to know what's happening right now. So Cloud can't just know every single thing in the world. He does a really good job at seeding, but you're going to be randomly seeded if you've played in like one tournament in the past month. It's just the way it is. Unless you're one of these really popular players or the ones that made it really far into league play last time, or like right around there, then you'll probably get a little bit of a bump because people know who you are and know how good you are. But for the most part, I wish RLCS would have just said like, hey, we're going to focus on all these tournaments. you should play pretty well here. That's kind of one of the reasons why Cloud did his Rocket Royale, probably, was to get a lot more matchups in to see where he should seed some of these teams. And, like, if you get an invite to Rocket Royale, you should probably try and make that if it's right before the RLCS qualifiers, because that's going to help a lot with your seeding. So I would definitely, when he does that before qualifier, you should probably look into that. So anyway, that's a big rant before we get into the bracket predictions itself. We're going to try and do it like quarter by quarter of the winners bracket. Lower bracket gets messy, and we'll talk about some of the really important games that you want to watch out for to see where these teams go in the lower bracket. But we'll get there. I'm not going to talk about every team. Like, I don't know every single team based on their rosters and stuff like that, like off the top of my head. So bear with me. But for the most part, we'll go over some of the more important games and go from there. So let's get into it. All right, Heroics wants to know why he was seeded 35th. Heroics, I don't know, but you upset the team, so you're good to go. So let's get into it. We have Irish versus No Capes. Like, Irish should have a very easy road until the quarterfinal. The hardest team they play is Radiance. I think Radiance is seeded 16th, according to these rankings. Yeah, about 16th, it looks like. The one thing I hate on the Reddit thing, you just can't really see the seed numbers. It kind of just goes, but it should be 16 if everything worked out. I'm trying to think where I had Radiance. I don't even think I had them on my list. I went through a top 15, and I did not have Radiance on my list. But I had, like, Soar above them, who Cloud actually has, like, 3 below, which makes sense because they haven't had as great results, but I have faith in Soar. But anyway, Irish should not have a problem until they get to the quarterfinal. Now, of course, these games are all best of 5, so it's going to be a little bit harder to make these incredible upsets because you have to win 3 times instead of just twice. So even if you lose once, there's not going to be as much pressure on these teams until they lose that second time when they're backed out. So we got Irish versus Atelier, maybe. But we'll get into that match in a second. So Atelier playing Spheres Deep. That was one of the upset teams. A team that was not seeded, or at least not seeded in the top 32, making it through. And then Selfless versus Team Atlas. Both those games should not be a problem for these teams. Now, this is a very important game, though, in the winners round 2 with Atelier. Or Atelier. I don't know. I have to figure it out. Versus Selfless. So the last time these guys played, to my knowledge, I'm going to look at the... I have a couple extra results here. Let me see if I can find them real quick. The last time they played, though, I believe was... Can't remember the tournament. I think it was SPL. It might have been something else. But the Atelier won 3-2 over Selfless. And that's basically why a lot of people had them 8 and Selfless 9. Was based on that result. A lot of people thought Selfless might be higher. But Selfless hasn't had the best results in a while. And, of course, like a 3-2, that's a coin flip series. That's not a huge deal. But they won last time. So we'll see. Let's see here. All right, I got it up. Let's see what Selfless has done. They've only played once, yeah, and that was that 3-2 versus Atelier for Selfless. And we'll see. So this is a tough one. You know, just because their name is so hard to print. No, I'm just joking. I think Selfless might come out on top here. I don't have the most faith in the world with Sizz. No offense to Sizz, but I think Sizz, out of the 6 players playing in that game, is probably the worst player. And it depends how he's playing. Like, if he's playing at a decent level, or maybe above average level, then they should be fine. But if he starts making some mistakes, Selfless can counter that and probably win this series. So I think it's going to come down to how Sizz plays. If Sizz plays well, they probably win, because Turtle and Matt, they're pretty consistent players. But on the same time, with Selfless, I feel like all 3 are pretty consistent for the most part. Dapper, Miho, and Pluto. They're not like the top of the top in North America, but they're all solid players. So, honestly, we always talk about these Sizz memes with the I hate Sizz and stuff, but I really think that this series is going to come down to Sizz. So we're not going to see this series on air because we only do the winners quarterfinals, so the ones that go into league play, and then the lower bracket games that also go into league play. Sorry, it's upper bracket and lower bracket. We're not supposed to call it winners and losers. So I think that's what it comes down to. I think it comes down to Sizz's play. At the same time, it's also an incredibly close series. It could come down to a weird 50-50. Who the hell knows? I'm going to give this to Selfless. Now, the reason why this matchup is so important, say Iris wins, which I think they will versus whoever they play here. But I think Iris, it depends how they're playing that day. It could be questionable. Like, again, like I talk about, like, inconsistency issues with them. But even against, like, these teams around the 8 range, they usually win even when they're playing poorly. So I think they'll still make it. But here's what we're talking about here. I'm going to have to go all the way over. So if Atelier won, they would be playing Freestylers in Disguise in the lower bracket. So that is the 10 seed. Now let's see where Selfless would have gone to. So Selfless would have to face Ohana. Say Selfless loses that game. So it's basically the difference of playing a 10 seed and Freestylers in Disguise or playing, I believe Ohana was the 6 seed. Yes, Ohana for me is the 6 seed. Let's see what Cloud has him ranked. So let's say Ohana loses. I think Ohana's actually the 7 seed on his. Yeah, so Ohana's the 7 seed. So it comes down to you play the 10 seed or the 7 seed based on if you win or lose that 8-9 matchup. So let's go back here. I have to make sure I can see it on your screen because my screen's obviously a little different. So it's a very important game, and that's why these games that we don't see on air are extremely important. Like, a lot of people are like, well, they only lost once, and they still have a chance. They can easily go through lower bracket, but you get put into a harder lower bracket the worse rounds you lose in. Like, if you lose in winners round 2, then you're going to be placed in a harder one compared to if you lose in the winners quarterfinal. So very important games and all throughout round 2, which is where we're going to see some close ones probably. So keep that in mind. We won't see those on air, but they're very important to change up the bracket. Now, of course, there could be some other surprises because a lot of these teams, like, I think, have a fighter's chance to win these games. Like, once you hit around winners round 2, a lot of these teams have a pretty good chance to surprise and get a good result. And pretty good chance, I mean, like maybe a 20% over maybe last season, which was probably more like a 5%. So we'll see if that happens. But I think Selfless beats Atelier. So I will give this to Iris, followed by Selfless. Drop it to the lower bracket. So they would be where Atelier is. It's going to be hard because you can't like put the wins in here. So they'd be over here. Sorry if I mess this up on screen. And it's going to be hard to listen to, too, because we're going to go through the whole bracket. So that's the first part. I think Irish smooth sailing through. No one wants to play them right now. They're looking really good. They are the number 1 seed here. I had them as number 2, but Cloud has them as number 1, which makes sense because they beat G2 2 series to 1 in the past month. That's fine. I think Irish makes through. I don't think you really have to worry. Now, this one gets some juicy games here. We got Genesis versus Spectrum. More than likely. Take 3 versus Helpless. Sorry, Heroics. But if any team can do it, it's got to be Helpless. Because I helped name that team, I guess I could say. But Helpless probably going to go down. Now, Nova is one of those teams that I'm looking out for. Nova, they also 2-0'd all the way through. I think that was the last team I checked. I think Spectrum also 2-0'd all the way through. Spectrum's the 13 seed. Nova's the 12 seed. I'm going to see where I had Spectrum. Spectrum, I also had it as the 13 seed. So they're one of those teams just outside that bubble that I did the power rankings with. So got to keep that in mind that these guys have had results. Let's see here. They have beaten Denial, which was probably one of their bigger wins to like put them more on the map. Besides beaten Denial, they really haven't beat anyone above them. So they haven't gone up a weight class since beaten Denial. And it was a close set, I believe, the last time they played. I can't remember the exact result because I'm just looking at just match series here. So Spectrum, they've done it before. Now Denial is probably worse than Genesis, I would say, but they're pretty close. So again, they have that chance. Maybe like you give them a 15% to 20% chance there. That's probably a little high, but they have a chance. And Genesis did lose 1 game last week, and some people think that they might tilt out. I don't think they're that tilty. I think a lot of people think they're a little bit more tilty than they actually are. We'll see if that comes into play if they lose to Take 3 in the upper final, because if they lose to Take 3, they're going to be on full tilt because they're going to be extremely nervous going into an elimination game. So we'll see about that. But I got Genesis there. Take 3 versus Nova. I think Nova's one of those teams that, again, they haven't really beat anyone above their weight class, but they beat basically every single team below their weight class. So that's why they're at 12. They're just kind of, they kind of just sit there and like, yeah, you know what? We're going to beat these teams. Like, they should beat Exotic Esports. They shouldn't have a problem. Spectrum, on the other hand, who knows? Maybe they lose that game, but for the most part, they also beat all the teams below them. They also beat Freestylers in Disguise, so we'll see. But Nova, like, if there's going to be a huge upset, I would probably call this Nova Take 3 game. Watch out for that. So I'm not going to predict that Nova's going to beat them, but like, if there's one of those really big upsets that's going to destroy a bracket and turn it into this is even a bigger one than Deception, because I would say Deception last time was probably the 10 seed going in. So watch out for this game. Like, I think Take 3 wins it, but you got to watch out. It depends how they're feeling that day. Like, we all know Espeon, he wears his emotions on his sleeve, and if like they start going down, who knows? He normally can bounce back, but you just never know. It could be a downward spiral. But I got Take 3 here as well. But yeah. So we got Genesis versus Take 3, which is probably going to be the best, the winner's quarterfinal game, I think, that we'll see. Personally, I like Take 3 just a little bit more than Genesis. I think both these teams, like a lot of people were thinking, are a little bit inconsistent here or there. Take 3 showed up really big in Rocket Royale for the first group stage, and then they kind of fell apart. Well, the first, like, Swiss stage, and then in group stage, they kind of fell apart, barely made it through. So we just don't know exactly where they are right now. They've kind of been bouncing back and forth. Genesis, the young guns over there, the team that I feel like a lot of people don't give a lot of credit to, including myself. So they could easily surprise and like be one of those top teams in North America. Like right now we have 3, but we're looking for a 4th right now. Like, we're looking for the 4th best team in North America to see who's on the path to go to LAN, even though that there's still a lot of time for that. Because obviously league play is 6 weeks if you include midseason mayhem. Yeah, it's about 6 weeks. And then we have playoffs. So there's another month and a half to play right now after league play. But here's a little stat for you. I was going to save it as a trivia question for Carpet or whoever's on the desk with me when this happens. I'm still going to do that because they're probably not listening anyway. But it's actually really important to win these league play games, at least so far. We've only had 3 teams ever. Like, so I'm going to throw this out to chat. What are the 3 teams? And don't look it up. Just try and guess. The 3 teams to have made it through the lower bracket and made it to LAN. Now, Qualifier 1's a little weird, but I am counting that. Qualifier 1 and Qualifier 2. Like, if you made it through lower bracket and then made LAN, those are counted. There's only been 3 teams between North America plus Europe that have made it through the lower bracket and made it all the way to LAN. So these games are actually kind of important, maybe, because it is kind of showing that the top teams kind of stay the top teams throughout the season. That might not be the case every single time, but it does help. Like, those stats are always a nice trend. So a lot of people saying Genesis, which is correct. Not Cosmic. Nope, not Mocket. All right, so everyone knows Genesis from Season 2, which makes sense because they were that surprise team that lost and had to play all the way through the lower bracket on day 2 and still made it. FTL never made the LAN, so it's based on LAN, not league play necessarily. But flip side, nope. Mocket, nope. So Genesis was definitely one of the teams. It's so hard to read Classic's name on my little chat thing, but that little black name is Classic's. Flying Dutchman, no, they actually won their game, but who did they beat? The team that they beat was the team. Orbit, no. Oh, I'm sorry. Orbit, yes, with Qualifier 1 is Vex, which is kind of like that outlier. It's like, in Qualifier 1, they made it through the lower bracket. But, well, so it depends on what Orbit you're talking about. So Vex Gaming or Exodus in Qualifier number 1, they didn't qualify in the upper side. They had to play iBuyPower Cosmic, actually, I believe. It was a close set, I think. I can't remember. But yeah, so they made it through, but that was kind of weird because it's Qualifier 1, but that was one of the teams. And then the other team was We Dem Girls. There we go. We see a lot of We Dem Girls finally come up. We Dem Girls lost to the Flying Dutchman, and then, of course, they didn't even have to play in Qualifier number 2, so we have that. But and then also Vex Gaming, they made it through the upper bracket the second time through. So it's Genesis, Exodus, or Vex, whatever you want to call them, and We Dem Girls. So since season number 2, so that was what? We had 8 chances then another 8 chances, because that would be 16, because there was a lot more lower bracket games for the second time around, I believe. No, there was only 2. So 8 chances plus 12 plus another 8. So like out of the 20 times it's happened, only 3 teams have made it all the way to land. So just keep that in mind. These games are pretty important. But the Genesis Take 3 game, that's one of those games that one of these teams wants to make a statement and say, hey, we're that 4th land team right now from North America. The road goes through us. And so whoever wins that is probably going to be extremely confident going into league play, and hopefully they can ride it through the first few weeks at least. But I'm going to give this to Take 3. I think it'll be a very close set. I think it can go either way. A lot of coin flip games, I feel like, in North America. When you start getting down to that 4 through maybe 9, and then after that it drops off a little bit more. So, next up, we got G2 Esports, everyone's most popular team. They're going to play Trinity or Life. Either one shouldn't be a problem. And then Ohana and Freestylers in Disguise. Now, another upset alert. Watch out for Freestylers in Disguise in this game. Now, Freestylers has not played a ton with their starting squad. I think during the when I ranked them 10, I forgot that some of those games were with subs. They haven't had a lot of results there. But Karma does own a suite in Utopia, which was pretty hilarious. I saw that. So, you know, that might favor them just a little bit. Just a bit. But let's see their results here real quick. For the past month, see if they're shooting above their weight class. 2-0 against Eggplant, 1-0 against Life. No, none of these. They did take Genesis down once, but I believe that was the DQ game, so that doesn't really count. They haven't beaten any of these top teams. So can they cross that hump right when they need to? This is one of those games that I'm watching out for, is like upset alert versus Ohana. Like, I think Ohana is pretty solid, but another one of those upset alert games. This one's a little bit closer than the Nova Take 3 one, but I'm going to give it to Ohana. I don't think Freestylers has it in them yet because they haven't beaten any of these top teams. They also just lost to Denial that used a sub in the show match. I can't remember the league it was in. I'm so sorry. But I don't think they're ready yet, which kind of sucks because here's your one chance, right, for the next, 3 months. So I don't think they're ready yet. I like Ohana here. Ohana's had some pretty decent results. I actually want to look up their results a bit here as we go into this final. I think they've had pretty decent results. So, of course, we have Hot Wizard, Moses, and Darkfire. All solid players. Like, I was really happy when it was, I think it was Darkfire, Classics, and Sad for the first Take the Shot monthly. As soon as I saw that roster, I was like, now, of course, like, I'm no expert compared to the players. Like, I think the players know how to pick teams better than, like, anyone outside because players are playing with these players, basically. So they kind of know what's working and what doesn't. And, of course, you have to play with them first to see if it works. But as soon as I saw that roster, like, I saw this is, like, 3 people that have a very similar role on all their teams, except for Sad. Like, Sad's been kind of transitioning back and forth, but for the most part, like, what they excel at, they all kind of do very similar. So I was like, this is probably not going to work for them. So I wouldn't call it like a ball chase team, but it's more of that aggressive nuisance style players. Like, I've seen Darkfire, like, I kind of criticized him in the last playoffs of maybe going for a little bit too many balls, like in a corner where there's really no pass opportunities or anything like that. Sad's done that a bunch, like at LAN. And then Classics was kind of like the bruiser for Genesis, but he didn't really show up when the offense needed him. And that's not saying that he can't on a different team, but I just felt like in this squad, that squad was probably not going to work out, and it didn't work out pretty quickly. We saw him take the shot. They kind of got beaten pretty handily. I think it was first Cheek Clapper. I could be wrong there. I think Cheek Clapper's one of its energy, but they lost to someone, and then they kind of slowly transitioned to new rosters. But I actually like this roster a lot because Moses is one of those smart defensive players that probably Darkfire needs. He used to have Torment on his team for that role. Then Torment went to Iris, so now he kind of subbed that in for Moses. And Hot Wheels said he's like I'm not as big of a fan of him, but he's definitely a solid player, like an all-around solid player from what I've seen. So this is a pretty good team. Like, I think they're very consistent. Like, I think Moses brings that consistency up compared to what Darkfire did, and Darkfire can focus more on, that number one goal scorer like in North America mentality. He was always like a top 5 goal scorer. So we'll see if he can continue that trend here. If they do make league play, I could easily see him challenging for the most goals for Ohana, as long as they don't get blown out in some of these games. But let's see the results here. They beat Genesis, that they beat Denial. They haven't been able to beat the big three. They actually haven't played a lot of these teams either because they were a freshly new squad. Hot Wheel Sid is pissed. Sid is nuts. Like, I have to see him more. I haven't seen him since last season as much. So I could be proven wrong for sure. But we'll see. Hot Wheel Sid, just prove me wrong, man. Just prove me wrong. It's fine. I can be wrong. I want to see him more. I haven't seen a ton of Ohana's games, so I could be way off on this. But Ohana, I still think beats Freestylers in disguise. Like, I think that was going to be my team where, like, there might be an upset somewhere, but I just haven't seen it from them yet. And then G2 versus Ohana, like, G2 is probably going to take this. Like, G2's been on fire. They did start losing games here or there in the past couple weeks. The teams maybe they shouldn't have, but I still like G2 here. They're a very solid team, probably the best demolition team in North America right now, and probably the best passing team. And if both of those are clicking, then you're looking good. Like, Ohana's going to have to play a quick game with Moses, who usually doesn't play as quickly. He tries to be a little bit more passive. You can't really do that against G2 because then they'll just pass on you. So you have to break up those passes. So we'll see. Doesn't understand the power of family. Like, I still think family makes it. Don't worry, Moses. Don't worry. And I'm going to have a lot of Fast and the Furious jokes for you guys. I'm going to have to start writing them down. I'm actually probably going to make a note sheet of just Fast and the Furious jokes and then just have it at the desk at all times so I can check them off as I use them. But I actually really like that name compared to fucking Atelier. What the fuck kind of name is that? But Ohana is actually a great name. I like it a lot. So we'll see how they do. But I think G2 beats them. But this could be one of those games where if G2's a little bit off on their passing plays or something like that, Ohana can come in and get the surprise win. I just don't see it. Like, the big three is really good. Like, the big three right now in North America, like, at first I thought it was a big two because Energy started to slip, but then just in Liquor League, Energy finally showed up once again, showing that they're ready at the perfect time for the Rlcs, beating out both Iris and G2. So, moving on to them, I don't think Energy has a problem with lesser teams. They never really have. They usually have a problem with teams above them. So, we'll see. We shall see. But Energy, I think, smooth sailing. Like, if any team probably has the easiest chance to make their upper bracket finals, like, if I had to do percentages, hell, I might say Energy because they're so consistent at beating the lesser teams. Like, they just don't lose to them, like, ever. While the other guys might lose here or there. Probably G2 has a pretty easy road, too, and Iris because of the seeding purposes. But Energy is very consistent when they're playing lower teams. They usually... Nothing really scares them there. They've only really lost to in the past month Iris, Take 3, and G2. So they usually just beat everyone that's above their weight class or below their weight class. And then they had a lot of struggles trying to beat G2 or Iris for a while. And then they finally beat them in this past week. So perfect time for them. I think they take this entire bracket. Like, the big three should win their brackets. And then the Genesis Take 3, I think that's one of those, here's a statement, we're the other team for NA. Because a lot of people are trying to figure out who that next team is. And so that's a big statement game there. But I think Energy take this. We have Denial versus Eggplant. If Eggplant makes it that far, they play Ineffable. And Ineffable's had some pretty good results. I think versus Eggplant. I could be wrong there. Yeah, they have beat them once. They're 1-1 in the past month in best of threes. So... this could be a surprise loss for Eggplant, and then it'll make a Denial's road a little bit easier. I don't think Denial loses to Eggplant. Like, if I'm going to go for two upsets, it would be the Take 3 Nova and the Ohana Freestylers. I think Denial beats Eggplant here, and I had Eggplant, I believe, at number 11. Yeah, I had them at number 11. So, I think Denial can win that game pretty easily. I think Denial is one of those teams that I am not showing enough respect for. I don't know why. I just don't like them right now. They're getting results, though. They're pretty much a brand new team, but they're getting okay results. They can't beat G2. They just never have. They keep playing them in a bunch of stuff, and they just keep losing. They lost Take 3. They split with Ohana. They split with Spectrum, which is not great, and that's like one of those losses that hurts, but that was, I mean, it happens. Like once in a while, it'll happen. You just don't want it to happen here. This is not a good place for that to happen whatsoever. But then they beat everyone else below them. They just haven't played a lot of these teams. I don't know why. I can't get behind Denial. I just can't do it. It could be, I don't know. Like, I just don't know. I think they'll do good. Like, I think Lethamir's been a little bit more defensive lately. I think, like, Lawler's been trying to, like, help with him, which does not bode well. Does not bode well for Lethamir at all. But we have Sad Jr., Lethamir, and Corrupted G. I think I might be downplaying Corrupted G. I think that might be the case here. Again, this is one of those teams I haven't seen a lot of. I haven't seen a lot of Corrupted G since last season. Last season was not the greatest performance in the world. So I think that's where my doubts come in. But I think Corrupted G has played better. The little I've seen of him from this season. So, yeah. So the four I got moving on are Take 3, Iris, G2, and Energy. So now we get to the lower bracket where things get really messy really, really quickly. We're just going to look towards the end. And we're going to have to, you know, remember what we said above and bring it down here. So, Freestylers in Disguise, they're probably going to be down here, playing Selfless. No, I'm sorry. Yes, they would be playing Selfless down here. So, in power rankings, that would be 9 versus 10. It could be 8 versus 10. And so the actual group of death, really, is the 8-9 seeds. The 8-9 seeds have it rough, but they're 8-9 seeds. And if Iris does wind up losing, then they have to play a 10 seed here, probably. So that's the toughest bracket there is. Actually, no, I'm sorry, not Iris. Like, Iris wouldn't play it. My apologies. It would be G2 versus... No, yes. I'm getting confused, guys. Never mind. We're just going to continue. So we got Selfless versus Freestylers in Disguise. 9 versus 10. I like Selfless here. Selfless is a solid team. Last week, I'm saying, like, Freestylers would be that deception-like team to cause some havoc, but I just haven't seen it from them yet. I haven't seen them play all that well, even with their starting roster. Like, I watched some of the Denial series where they were using the sub, and I just didn't see it. I just didn't see League play team there. But who knows? Maybe they'll surprise. I got Selfless moving on here, so Selfless will get in, and that's mostly because of the win they got over Atelier in the upper bracket. So we got that one. And then we got Take 3 versus Eggplant. So I had Take 3 winning, so this would be Genesis versus Eggplant. But remember, if they lose in this game over here, the Eggplant versus Ineffable, this would be Ineffable's spot, if that happens. This could be one of those just like cakewalks for Take 3 or Genesis, because this could get scary here. Like, a lot of these teams could, it could be a no-name team coming out of here, or at least a lower-ranked team coming out here and taking on Take 3 or Genesis, which then I think they handily win this series, no matter who they play. I'm giving this a 3-0. I don't even care who's in this series. This particular one is going to be a 3-0. I don't care. That one should be easy. Now, this one's going to be rough. This is one of those rough ones where the butts will be clenched. It will go to Game 5. We got Ohana, which I believe will get there after they play G2. So this is the series that is the group of death, where G2 or Ohana has to play the 8-9 seed that won, I believe. Oh, no, I'm sorry, that lost in the previous game. So this would be Ohana versus Atelier. So the two names, like the two brand new names, basically. I guess Denial's in there too, but that's an org. So the two names that are new, basically, that are not org represented, I would be playing here. Ohana versus Atelier. And I got Ohana. I think both these teams can be consistent at times, but again, we're going to talk about Sizz. I'm going to talk about Sizz here. I'm just going to call him out. I want to see Sizz play well. I haven't seen every single series with Atelier, but a couple I've seen, there's been some issues once in a while. I love my Turtle. I love my Turtle, but this is also like a rivalry game too. It'd be Moses versus Turtle. So we'll see how that goes. Matt and Sis, obviously, leaving A-Money sleeveless. That kind of hurts, too. A-Money would have the game if it was selfless, but it would be Atelier here, which is obviously, we're trying to keep track. It gets confusing. But I got Ohana. Moses is going to come up big in this game. I think Moses is one of those players where, like, every season he's getting better offensively. Like, I think he's been more known as his defensive, like, trying to keep the team collected. But he does rotate in a lot, and I think he's been getting better and better every single time I see him on the offensive side. He grew a lot while he was on Orbit. Like at the start of it, he was playing a little bit more defensive when he got dropped from Kings. But a lot of teams he's been on, it's kind of just been that way. But I think he starts stepping up a little more offensively with Ohana. You guys will be surprised to see what he does. And I expect some good stats from him this season if they do make it. But we'll see. I got Ohana here. I don't think there's a lot of upsets. I thought there might be, but I think the only one is maybe Atelier going out. Like I think there's 9 teams right now in NA, and there's 8 spots, which kind of sucks. But we'll see. So I was going to say, like, Freestylers were that team that I'm thinking has an upset potential, and then I kind of backed off for these bracket predictions. Well, I'm bringing it back. Nova coming in. Nova's my team to watch. They might pull a deception and somehow sneak in to this league play. If anyone's going to do it, that's not one of the top 9 teams. I think it's Nova. I don't know why, but Nova is another one of those teams. Just beats everyone below them, loses to people above them. They actually have a lot more results against the lower teams. That they play a lot together. So that might help because they've been playing a lot. Nova roster. I can't even remember exactly what the roster is. Hold on. Just give me 1 second. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's Double. That's the one I was missing. Prime Thunder, Double, and Pyre. So Double's that one that I kind of forgot about. But Prime, he's a crazy, crazy player. I think I haven't seen him in a while, but I think he's probably got a little bit more control than what he used to do. But they have a ton of series versus a lot of teams, but they generally beat the teams below them. So that's why I think they'll have a chance here, and we'll actually see them on stream. And then they play Denial. They haven't beat Denial. They're 0-2, and one of those was with a sub. I think it was for Denial with the sub. I'm not positive. But this could be one of those, like, if things go well, like if the magic happens, I could see Nova squeaking in there. They also play up here in the uppers. Let's see, where were they? Hopefully you guys can still see it. Yeah, so take 3. So that's like that game. Like if they win this game, then they have a much better shot to make it. But I think they still have a chance versus Denial. If there is one team that does make it, I would give it to Nova. I won't flat out say they'll make it, but that is the team to look out for, I would say, out of all these teams that are not 1 through 9. And I think Denial still makes it. I think they're solid. It's probably more just because I haven't seen them a lot. And I want to see Sad make it back to land because Sad's Bay, you know? Like, I want to see Sad, Crow, and me all back, and then we're going to do a Cosmic Aftershock game versus old Flipside. Even though Mike rules his team is poo, he's still going to show up at land. I don't know why. He probably just wants to get drunk. He'll show up, and then we'll do an OG game on day 2, okay? Let's do it. Pencil it in. But yeah, so I think Denial makes it. And then I think they have their work cut out for them during league play. They're one of those teams that will have probably a lot of surprise wins, some surprise losses. Like I could easily see them like get like a big win versus one of the big 3 or something just randomly, and then like, oh, everyone's really hot on them, and then they start losing. It's kind of like Take 3 last year, except Take 3 wound up saving their season towards the end. But that's my bracket predictions. It's not that surprising, but like, so if I'm going to pick one team to look out for that is not a normal household name, I would go Nova. I actually don't really like Eggplant here. I don't like Eggplant in this. I don't like Freestylers either anymore. After seeing them play, they just didn't look fantastic to me. But that's who I got. And I think the big 3 will make it in easily. And then this match should be probably the best match maybe of the entire day, Genesis versus Take 3. Because that's basically who's the 4th best team right now. So that'll be a lot of fun to watch. But yeah, so that'll do it. And yeah, that's our bracket predictions. This will probably cut it for the YouTube section, and then we'll go to Twitch chat for some questions. So thanks for watching on YouTube. If you want to catch the whole Twitch broadcast, like, you can go there as well. It's probably not going to be that great of questions because Twitch chat kind of sucks. I kid. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time. Later. All right.